Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the YouTube channel. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about how to assess and monitor your knee extension post ACL surgery or injury. Now, if you're like a lot of people, you're probably victim of the typical hospital setup in the UK, where you have your surgery, you see the inpatient physio, they'll give you a booklet of exercises, you're left alone for 2, 3, 4 weeks before you see the physio face to face. And it's within that period that the main priority, regardless of anything else, if you get one thing right, it's regain your extension and do that well and make sure it's progressing. Now, for different people, it's going to progress at different rates depending on the nature of the surgery, so how traumatic it is, how much swelling you've got, and how fit and strong you were going into surgery. So if you've gone in with a knee that wasn't straight initially, which is sometimes the case, unfortunately, you're probably going to expect it's going to take a lot longer. In most cases, you want to be achieving full extension, hyperextension in 4 to 6 weeks, which is achievable with the right program and the right application. Most of the time, people just don't get the basics right. They don't do it enough to get the result, and they'll progress 3, 4 months down the line with a knee that's still not straight, and they're progressing through the rehab, trying to train normally, and that's not good enough. So we need to understand why it's important to get this back as soon as possible as well, because essentially extension is the foundation of everything. So if you think about building a house or a pyramid, the base is the biggest thing. Obviously you build on top of a strong, stable base. If you put a pyramid on top of one brick or a few bricks and it kind of looks like this, and then you build a base on top of it, at some point it's going to fall down, it's not going to be very stable. So your extension is literally going to what set the foundation for everything going forward. And if you don't get that and you start progressing through your rehab as normal, then you're going to run into a lot of problems, because it's going to put a lot more stress through the joint. And basically a lack of extension is representing your quads not activating properly. If your quads aren't working properly, like I say, more stress through the joint, more likely to cause pain, more problems as you start to do impact work, running, etc. So essentially all you're going to need for this is a camera and a towel. So I'll just talk you through the different types of extension we're looking at. So we've got a straight leg, which is 0 degrees. Most people will have 5 to 10 degrees hyperextension. If you're hypermobile, it might be quite a bit more than that. Some people have legs that literally bend up to the sky. But essentially, if I tense my quad, you can see that my heel pops up off the floor quite nicely. That is hyperextension for me, around 5 to 10 degrees. And it's equal both sides. So if I do it on my left, I do it on my right. Now, if after surgery you have quad weakness or quad inhibition, you may get to neutral, but you've not got the strength in the quad contraction to make that heel pop up. And that's something that you need to, like I say, be getting back as soon as possible. And there are basic quad activation exercises you can do to help this. So essentially, with the Compex, neuromuscular electrical stimulation, get the quad contracting and start working that inner range. Just doing that can help, particularly in the early phases, and then you progress the sort of intensity of the exercise to improve that further, to improve things like walking, etc. And then you've got your passive extension. So a lot of people worry that they've got scar tissue. That's a phrase kind of running around the internet at the minute, and what people have researched. I think people are starting to become more aware of the importance of extension. If you're into your rehab and you're not really sure why extension is important, that's probably a failing from your rehab team. It's one thing I bang on to people about straight away before surgery. If people work with me, we have a conversation. The most important thing is get your extension back. So if you can't get a heel pop, chances are when you start walking, your knee's going to start fatiguing, and then you're going to lose more extension the more you walk, because the quad can't handle the stress that you're putting through it. But one thing to assess the difference, if there is scar tissue, then you can get what you call a cyclops lesion in the knee, which is essentially a ball of scar tissue that stops your knee from straightening. So it doesn't matter what you do, if you've got that scar tissue in your knee, cyclops lesion, you're not going to regain your extension. You're going to need surgery for that. So a good way to assess whether you may or may not have additional range of motion, or it's just stiffness within the knee, because most of the time it is just because people haven't done the basics well. If you passively extend your knee, so what you're going to need to do is wrap the towel around your foot, fixate your knee, Everybody always makes the mistake with this of lifting the whole leg up. Fix above your knee. So this is my right leg, so I'm gonna hold the towel with my right hand, fix with my left hand above the knee, and then pull my heel up. So you can see I've got more passive hyperextension than active, so I can stretch it further. So if there was a block in the knee, there would be no difference between your active and your passive. So you're essentially using your arms and the leverage of the towel to go further into extension. Now, if you've got hyperextension passively but not actively, I'm a lot less concerned that it's not a scar tissue issue, it's just your quads not activating properly. So that gives us more confidence that if we start doing an inner range extension program, eventually that heel pop will come back. So fixate above the knee and then pull back, and then you can just compare both sides. What's your normal? I actually think my right is more flexible than my left now, slightly, because I've injured it that many times and I've had to do extension exercises. But you can see roughly the same, but that's quite a bit tighter for me. So again, no concerns with that. So if I let me set this up. So what you're going to need to do with this, one of the best ways to do it I find, and what I get my clients to do, so I'll get them to send me videos, is if you do it front on with your feet facing the camera, you can essentially see how much your heel pops up off the floor. So you tense my left, tense my right, and then we can do it at the same time to compare. You just got to make sure that when you're doing it, a lot of people are trying to force the heel pop. You want to just let it come naturally, because when you force it and you're trying to lift up, what people do is they'll lift up with the hip. When you're tensing your quad, you're essentially, imagine you're trying to squash an egg under the back of your knee, and you're just trying to force the movement just from the quad. So as I tense my quad, it pops up, nothing else is moving. What people tend to do is they lean back and they're lifting the hip just to get the height on the heel. Don't worry about getting the height, just let it come naturally. So you can see when I tense, I've got equal height off the ground on both sides. And we want to monitor this over a few weeks. If you're not getting any improvement in a few weeks, then that's a little bit concerning, in the sense that we want to see continued weekly progress. So if there is concerns of the scar tissue, you're monitoring it, you're assessing it, you can see no difference in a few weeks, you probably want to get that checked out. Caveat to that is, if you've gone into surgery with a knee that isn't straight, then obviously that might take quite a bit longer, and we can assess your passive extension. So if your passive extension is full, or you can get further, then that might be a reason that, well, although it's not that much improvement in a few weeks, we know we're less concerned that there's scar tissue there. Again, liaise with your consultant, they should be pretty switched on to that stuff. But if you literally can't get your leg up at all with a towel, it's just blocked, you can't even get the leg straight, there's a big gap under the knee, then that might be a concern. Just make sure, a lot of people say, if I just set up again from the side, a lot of people say that there shouldn't be a gap under the knee. Again, my experience is people have different anatomy. I've been concerned at times when someone sent me a video and there's a big gap under the knee, but then you look at the other side that's not injured and it's exactly the same. So sometimes people do have different anatomy, so that's just something to consider. So like I say, if you give that a go yourself, it's just a really simple, easy way to monitor and assess your progression with your extension. When I used to use a goniometer in clinic, it's really difficult to see the difference with a few degrees. You get the inconsistency from day to day of measuring it and putting it in the right place in terms of anatomy. For yourself, if you're going to use a goniometer at home, it's really difficult. So you need 3 hands to do it. So I find this just a nice way of assessing your progress. Obviously, you're not going to get an objective value from it, but if you compare week to week, you will hopefully see a difference if you video it. If you're not seeing a difference week to week, then definitely from week 4 to week 1, you should see a difference, and it's a nice way to look back. And if you're not seeing that progress over a longer stretch of time, then that's where it might be a reason to be a bit more concerned. But like I say, it's all context and your individual circumstances. There's people that I've had on my program that have taken 20 weeks to get it back, and they've gone into surgery with a knee that wasn't straight. And we differentiated from that with the active extension and the passive. They could get good passive but struggle with the active, and like I said, that reinforces it's probably more likely the quad inhibition that's the concern. Whereas if it's both passive and actively reduced and that's not progressing over a 2-3 week period, that's going to raise our concern a little bit more. So if you are post-op and you're a few weeks in and you're not really sure how you should be managing your knee, or you're even weeks or months down the line and you feel like your knee's not straight, then that's potentially something I can help you with. If you feel like you need help and a structured plan on getting that back or assessing properly, then you can reach out to me at RickWilliams_ACL coach. If you're finding this content useful, obviously hit the subscribe button. I'm going to try and put as much out of much content like this out as possible to help you with your recovery and just give you some more really simple insights into how to progress and what to look for, because obviously often you're left alone post-surgery and you're not really sure what's right, what you should be doing. I get a lot of messages in my DMs and it's very difficult to explain in detail, so hopefully videos like this will give a bit more context so you can either speak to your physio or look at getting more specialised help. Like I say, hopefully that was useful, and I'll see you on the next one.